Hey guys, what's up? Thinkcard here, and in this video I am going to go over ganking. Now I know you're thinking, ganking is simple, you show up to a lane that's overextended, you kill the champion. What is so complicated about ganking? Well, there are actually a ton of small things you can do as the jungler to make sure that your ganks are as optimal as possible. Every time you do a failed gank, you can be punished elsewhere on the map. Now you're vulnerable to being counter jungled and you're vulnerable to being ganked in other lanes because now they know where you are. So it's really important to make sure that your ganks are a good use of time. So first things first, when you load into game, you need to look at the champions. Which lanes have a lot of CC? Which lanes are easy to gank? Which lanes will probably play really aggressively, so they're going to be low HP. You need to think about these things so that you can plan out your path. So for example, in this game, I have a Zilean versus a Vayne top with Ignite. Everyone in the world knows that this Vayne is probably going to play really aggressively, so I give him the oldest trick in the book, take my red buff, run top, and we're able to get the kill. Even if I'm able to just burn his flash or just chunk him out and we can't get the kill, it's a really efficient use of my time because he has no TP. When a top laner takes Ignite, it's very important to him that he can play out the lane aggressively. So every time you gank that lane and you chunk him out and it allows your laner to TP back with an advantage or just be in control of the lane, it's very impactful on the early game. Another good technique to use is to gank a laner as soon as they get back to lane. Usually laners will ward when they get back to lane, so you know that they're not going to have a ward in the river and you're going to be unseen. Also, when laners back, they're usually coming back to lane with a minion wave building into them. Because when is the optimal time to base? It's when you can push your minions into the enemy turret. And then when you base and come back to lane, you're missing as few creeps as possible because a wave is coming back into you. This means that if you can kill a laner as soon as they get back to lane, it's incredibly optimal. Because not only do you get the kill, you also deny them the huge wave of minions that's heading into them. So in this game, I see the Vayne built up a wave and crashed it into our top turret. So I know that if I wait in the river, I can kill him as soon as he gets back to lane, and he's going to miss this huge minion wave. Even though he gets a kill in return and it's 1-for-1, it's still incredibly worth it that we were able to deny him this entire wave of experience and gold. Another thing to point out about this gank is my use of my gap closer. A lot of junglers, when they gank, they will use their gap closer ability right away. However, if you're already behind your enemy, you can just walk up to them and start using your abilities and then save your gap closer to follow their flash. Another really useful thing to do is to always be looking at your laners while you jungle. You get a really nice feel for their tendencies and you can see when they use their abilities. Champions like Zed and LeBlanc, they might seem like really hard champions to gank. However, those champions often use their gap abilities to farm or to CS, and if you can see them use those abilities, you can punish them super easily with a gank. So in this game, while I'm heading to the crab, I'm looking at mid lane and I see that Sylas uses his dash ability to farm. So I know that if I'm around mid lane, he's going to use his dash ability to get this cannon or to get a ranged minion. So I know it's going to be a really nice use of my time if I can wait for him to use his dash and then gank him. So I sit around mid lane, he uses his dash, I walk in, flash on him, we're able to get the kill, and that is because we were able to wait a little bit longer just so he used his dash ability. What's also really important is that you can see the Sylas, he is playing a little bit far back, so a lot of laners, when their wave's in a bad spot, they will know the jungler might be nearby, so they play a little bit safe. So it's really important that you choose your time wisely when you go in. A lot of laners will overextend for cannons, so cannon minions are really nice bait to make sure that your enemy laner will step forward, leaving himself most vulnerable to being ganked. So to reiterate these few tips, the first one is to always look at the minimap and the lanes while you are farming. This way you can see which laners are playing too aggressively, which ones are leaving themselves vulnerable to being ganked. You should also be looking at the waves, which lanes are pushing away from your team, which waves are pushing back into your team. This way you know what is the best use of my time in the future. The next thing is, once you show up to a lane, it's okay to be patient to make sure that your gank is going to be optimal. If you've been watching a lane and you know that an enemy laner is most likely going to use their gap ability to farm or to trade, then waiting those few extra seconds for them to use that ability is totally worth it. Also, if you know that an enemy laner is going to step up a little bit further to get that cannon minion or to get some CS, then once again, waiting those extra seconds is totally worth it to make sure that your gank is going to be more optimal. And the last thing is choosing when to gank a lane. If you can gank a lane as soon as a champion gets back to lane, it is going to be an extremely optimal and efficient gank. That enemy will miss so much gold, so much experience from that big wave, and you will get the gold from the kill. It will snowball that lane immensely, and it'll really help out the early game. So these are all things to keep in mind while you are jungling, while you are ganking, while you are farming, while you're doing anything. You need to think about these things to make sure that when you do gank, it's a really nice use of your time. You don't want to be inefficient as a jungler, and always make sure that you are thinking about how to use your time.